Hello, this is Meccano Bill here with another model, and this time I'm going to describe a ride from Victorian times. This particular model is more based on a Victorian toy, which in turn represents the ride. The ride in question is the Carousel. The rides of this type were developed very early in the 19th century, but there is no record of the exact development. It is known that they relied mainly on muscle power, and in fact young children were used at first to drive them, and then other methods were invented. An interesting development on these lines was known as the velocipede, and this consisted of a bicycle which was on the revolving turntable. The user would pedal the machine and provide his own power to turn the roundabout. Further development took place later in the 19th century, when steam power became available. The first known steam ride was in 1861, and from then on there were many developments of types of ride, what was portrayed on them and how they operated, all based on steam power. This particular model is known as a chair carousel because basically the bottom platform does not revolve, but the revolutions of the chair take place from the top, which is driven, as this is a Victorian toy, is hand driven by a handle on the side. So I'll now turn the handle slowly and you should see the ride revolving. So that is how the chair carousel worked. The mechanics to do this are underneath the ride and consists of a pinion which is driven by the handle, and this in turn powers a spindle going through the centre of the ride up to the top, where there is a special universal joint which allows the movement of the chairs in any direction. There was a modification made on the original design that I used. I found that the chairs, when the ride was slowing down, were banging into the centre of the ride, and so a modification was made to stop this. But the chairs do fly outwards, as they would in fact when the ride was taking place. And I will now show the ride going again, but a little bit faster, and you will see the chairs flying out. I'm going to sit back a bit, because if you're too close to it, they'll hit you. So you can see that the way the chairs operate is entirely governed by the speed of the ride, and this in turn would be controlled by the operator. And I would suspect that for some who wanted a less exciting ride, the speed would be kept down. But for the very brave, the chairs would probably go out almost horizontal, and they would have to sit in there very tightly. The The joints at the top, as I say, provide the movement in each direction, but there is a special piece put in to stop them moving inwards, otherwise they would fly back into the centre of the ride, as I stated. The chairs themselves, they hang on the spindles, and in the ride that would be used in a practical application, they could be lowered so that people would be able to climb into the chairs. I haven't included that mechanism in this model, as this is really meant to be a kind of Victorian toy which would have appeared for children to play with rather than to represent the entire model. Going on to the technicalities, I'll give you a view of the underneath. It's a very simple gear mechanism, and you can see there's a handle. I can turn that slowly. You can probably see it turning. Don't want to turn it too fast because it's on its side. And you can see that the gearing gives drive to the centre spindle. And this goes right the way through the model, inside the four girders to the top. Then there are arms provided on a strip. It's a 7-hole strip, and then the chairs hang by the special joint which allows that free movement. One of the problems with constructing this ride was there aren't really any parts that can provide a circular base that's large enough to accommodate the ride. So in the centre of this, where the pillars are, in the centre there is a circular plate, but my fingers are on the edges of it, and as you can see it's not very wide, and that's the largest circular plate that I have available in my Meccano set. But I've developed the hexagonal design round the outside, which keeps it more or less following a circle, but gives a platform over which the chairs revolve. But this is a problem with Meccano, in that there aren't really any circular parts which accommodate a larger base, which is a pity really, because there's a lot of mechanical rides which would benefit from such a part. I think when Meccano was developed, the designer Frank Hornby envisaged mechanisms rather than the sort of things that are developed these days. So there wasn't much need for the larger circular parts, and those that do exist are all to do with cranes and providing mechanism to have revolving cranes, but they don't give a firm base for construction of a model such as this.